Thank you to all of you to come this morning because I know that redevelopment really means a lot to you. I want to add my thanks to that of Peter's and your applause to Secretary Donovan for bringing his very reassuring, we are on the right track mission to us, for being visionary and practical in the same breath, and also having a personal commitment to New Jersey. That means a great deal, and I think it means a great deal to all of us in this room committed to redevelopment, which clearly takes on a special meaning as we do so in light of Sandy. I also want to put another personal note on this. As I look around the room, I really don't know every single one of you, but a lot. But I see in every face a hope, a plan, a project for making better places, more jobs, additional housing, parks, streets, for walkers, bikers, and slowly moving vehicles, for building offices and apartments in what we call mixed use, all designed because you believe in lively communities that have increased value and are places that people want to be. But you all know there is a context. A willing and prepared local government and citizenry, an economy that supports investment, some expert and talented people to make it happen, and maybe the hardest thing of all to grasp, you can do those other things, is a public infrastructure that is modern, reliable, and available to support these initiatives, and they're your initiatives. And that's what this panel is all about. In this latter matter, New Jersey needs to address and is the subject of this preview of infrastructure investments necessary for economic success in New Jersey. And that's what this part of Facing Our Future is all about. So we do want to talk with you very briefly to introduce what one could call is the whys and the wherefores of this next report, and ask you to join us in looking ahead to how it might be useful once it's completed, especially in our New Jersey communities, where we really have this remarkable commitment to redevelopment in general and specifically in response to Sandy. So what do we want to cover? We want to tell you who we are because we want you to join us. We want to tell you why we see it as a problem and what the issues are. And then my colleague, Michael Catania, is going to give you an illustration of how we are working on these problems. So you may ask, who are we to take on such a task? Well, I have to say, we're a band, an independent, bipartisan, volunteer group, experienced do-gooders who have been challenged by leadership and have already probably paid some of our dues in terms of community involvement. And you can see the names up there. We are supported by New Jersey foundations and private donors. We do our work basically with existing public information. We want you to know where we got the data, and we want you to be able to corroborate it if you want to. So it's not something that is hidden in any way. Now, this effort on infrastructure follows two previous reports that we did, and I think many of you are probably familiar with them. And the second one really updates the first one. Facing Our Future presented a picture of the projected available resources and then the projected expenditures for the services we now have in the annual budgets over a 5-year period of time, not just an annual budget, for the governments in New Jersey, local, county, school district, and state government, a picture that provided us with a gap. And here you can see on this slide, the numbers don't really matter, and it doesn't make any difference if it's local government or county government. The point is that we are living in a world where what we have been doing and say we want to continue to do does not have the money to actually do it if you use a reasonable projection. So you are then faced with the challenge of how do you fill the gap. And let me get my notes here in order. And we're faced with the annual budget, if you want to look at it that way, with an infrastructure that also needs investment. And so how do we fill the gap when we know we can't tax ourselves out of it or we can't cut ourselves out of it? It means a more efficient and reliable and effective government that looks at what we have now and how we will face the future. So, the same issues confront us as we look at our infrastructure. And so we have to figure out, as Peter mentioned in his opening remarks, how do we maintain what we have? How do we determine the needs for the future? That is one of the big challenges. How do we know what we have and what needs to be done? How do we invest? How do we find the funding to sustain investment over a period of time? Because this is not an annual budget as the ones that we had looked at originally. The informed people in this room know that the problem of identifying the need, setting priorities, and applying sustained funding to maintain and improve our infrastructure existed before Sandy. This is not a new problem. But we are now we have complicated it because we have made a commitment to including Sandy in that calculation, and there is much to be learned. So let me just show you one simple chart up there in the corner that really tells us that we're starting from a pretty low level to meet our needs. But like all report cards, this doesn't tell you really anything about what to do next, unless you have a nagging mom standing by to make some very forceful suggestions. And don't want to put myself in that category, but at least I now see myself as a mom standing by and saying, this is not a good report card, and I'm going to be part of helping people make a change in that report card. So we all must figure out how to marshal strategic investments from both the public and the private sector. We need this assessment of needs, a plan for addressing them, what it will cost, where the funds come from, and how will we expend them over a period of time. All in order to assure that New Jersey's economic success and our community successes will be meeting our dreams, and it will be largely through redevelopment. Facing our future is focusing on the infrastructure in 3 areas: electric power, transportation, and water systems. You see that up on the slide, as key to our economic future. So to give you an example of how we're approaching this, as I said, Mike Catania has been working on the issues of water systems infrastructure for our leadership group and is going to talk to that. And then we look forward to hearing from our guests from New York and Washington, D.C., where I think they have already addressed some of the issues that we know we are facing, and they will provide us both with information and, we hope, inspiration for keeping going on this really daunting task. So, Mike, I'm turning it over to you. Thank you.